we're saying happy birthday, happy second birthday to the IRA, or as I like to call it, the biggest climate bill in the history of the world. And we're celebrating all of the incredible, jobs that have been created, the environmental injustice that is being remediated. But this is a monumental, historic day because we are celebrating the incredible progress which we have made in fighting the climate crisis, but in also remediating all of the historic injustice that had affected our country because of our blindness to where these problems were being created, and all of the new jobs which are being created across our state. So we're celebrating the historic impact of the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest climate and clean energy investment in our history. It is revenue generating, job creating, justice promoting machine. Since the enactment of the law, private sector companies across the country have announced or advanced more than $370 billion in investments in 650 new clean energy projects, which will create nearly 334,000 new jobs nationwide with the funding that has already been invested. But it's going to wind up millions of clean energy jobs over the 10-year period that are going to be created here and across the nation. And we've already seen this windfall in Massachusetts. In our Commonwealth alone, we've pulled in $976 million in grants from the Inflation Reduction Act. 2/3 of that money is going directly to gateway cities and environmental justice communities such as Mattapan, which despite having some of the highest childhood asthma rates in Boston, has historically been locked out of our clean energy future. From the IRA's clean energy and energy efficiency tax credits, this is an unbelievable number, but just last year, 100,000 people in Massachusetts took home $231 million in tax credits for their homes. We're just 2 years in, and Massachusetts is already home to $1.2 billion in investments from the Inflation Reduction Act. And that's not the whole story. Combined with key provisions from the bipartisan infrastructure law, these two pieces of legislation have spurred an environmental justice and clean energy revolution in our Commonwealth. What does that revolution look like? Well, it's more than $400 million for electric school buses and electric public transit vehicles right here in Massachusetts, right here in Boston. It's $242 million to make homes and buildings more energy efficient right here in Boston. It's $447 million for infrastructure improvements throughout New England to support offshore wind. It's $36 million for electric vehicle charging infrastructure right here in Boston and across the Commonwealth. Taken together, these two laws, the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, have invested more than $13.5 billion in Massachusetts so far. That is a massive amount of investment in a very brief period of time. These laws have the power to change our lives, change our communities, and change our future. They are supercharging the Massachusetts innovation economy, giving us the response to Donald Trump's drill, baby, drill, with our response, plug in, baby, plug in. It's an all-electric future. But these dollars won't deliver and won't work without workers. So I'm thrilled to be here with the Massachusetts AFL-CIO because climate action can be the engine for the greatest blue-collar jobs program in a generation. This is job creation to save all of creation. from the project labor agreement signed last week for the new offshore wind terminal in Salem to the IBEW members building utility-scale solar around the Commonwealth. Union workers are getting the job done to install this clean energy future for Massachusetts and for our country. There are currently 213,000 jobs within or created by the clean energy industry in Massachusetts alone. And there are 120 clean energy construction projects currently in the works that have the potential to create an additional 63,000 union jobs in our state. We're building transmission lines and creating job pipelines. And of course, they're not just going to be jobs, they're going to be careers for these young people as they get a skill set that will serve them for the next generation. IBEW alone, there are more than 1,000 apprentices working across the state right now, and more than 50% of them are women and people of color. 50%. This is a new era in unions in our state, and we are seeing it happen dramatically, quickly, because of the IRA. As we look ahead, we must remember that this new clean energy revolution cannot lock out black, brown, indigenous, immigrant, and low-income communities like the Industrial Revolution of the past. Instead of suffering the consequences of environmental wrongs, these communities must lead in building the pathway to right and to justice. That's why I'm so excited to be joined by Power Corps Boston, which upholds its name by empowering young people to work in climate-resilient industries. When I envisioned the American Climate Corps, which President Biden launched with me and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in April, these are the young people who are with us today that I hoped to see keep our communities safe from climate change. But while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were growing our clean energy economy and standing up for jobs and justice and the future of our planet, there was a Project 2025 put together by the Heritage Foundation and Republicans who want to keep their oil-soaked roadmap for a fascist, MAGA-fueled future on the books. If he gets elected, Donald Trump won't have a cabinet in his administration. He will have a cartel. Back in April, Trump said he would gladly roll back all of the Biden-Harris climate investments for $1 billion in support of his campaign. The oil and gas industry has made clear this is the most important election in the history of the oil and gas industry. And we agree with them because we are going to ensure that the funding continues so that we have a clean energy revolution, so that the day will be reached when children have to go to the history books to find that there ever was such a thing as fossil fuels that were allowed to pollute in our society. Kamala Harris and Democrats want polluters to pay. Donald Trump wants pay to play. If you give him $1 billion, he will take all of the environmental and clean energy laws off of the books. And that's what's at stake this November. But we don't agonize, we organize in order to win. And we know there's no climate action without access, and there's no access without awareness. And so that's why today I am launching a new online climate hub website. It compiles resources in a one-stop shop to track federal funding opportunities, access tax credits, and build your clean energy future. You can learn about the $20 billion which I secured for a national climate bank funding, which was officially awarded today by the Biden-Harris administration through the Environmental Protection Agency, and is already starting to capitalize climate-friendly projects all across the Commonwealth. Now is the time to build a green generational wealth, build up our unions while building up our communities, and build a world where people don't just survive, they thrive. So we're here celebrating today with the doers that make these green dreams come through. And we're going to hear from Kate England, Director of Green Infrastructure for the City of Boston, Joe Curtatone, President of Northeast Clean Energy Council, Ryan Murphy, Executive Director, Climate Jobs of Massachusetts, AFL-CIO, and Davo Jefferson, Executive Director of Power Corps Boston. And by the way, we're also joined by Ryan Woods, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation for the City of Boston. Let me begin by introducing Kate England, Director of Green Infrastructure, City of Boston. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate England, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Green Infrastructure for the City of Boston. I wanted to thank Senator Markey for your leadership and for bringing us all together today. At the 2-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act, there is so much to celebrate here in Boston. As a coastal city, Boston is uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We are already experiencing the effects of coastal and stormwater flooding, sea level rise, storm surge, and excessive heat. By the 2070s, annualized losses from coastal and riverine flooding alone could amount to $1.4 billion. But at the same time, Boston has become a leader in coastal resilience planning and implementation. Mayor Wu's Green New Deal for Boston provides a framework for achieving Boston's climate goals with policies, programs, and investments to advance social, racial, and economic justice. From flood design guidelines to new policies supporting green infrastructure and nature-based solutions to coastal resilience plans for 47 miles of coastline, we are preparing. I'm fortunate to be working on several projects funded by a number of IRA grants. We received $333 million from the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant for the I-90 Alston Multimodal Project, and an additional $2.5 million for greening Chelsea waterfront. We received $11.4 million from the Urban and Community Forestry Assistance Program to grow our urban tree canopy, support the expansion of Power Corps, and reimagine the way that we think about tree pits in the city of Boston to include porous paving that allows stormwater to absorb into the ground and feed our trees. We also received funding for clean school buses, energy efficiency retrofits, and heat pumps for affordable housing. And most recently, on June 11th, the U.S. Department of Commerce and NOAA announced $60 million in projects to help train and place individuals in jobs to advance a climate-ready workforce as part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda. The City of Boston received one of the largest grants of the 9 projects that were selected, $9.8 million, to create the Greater Boston Coastal Resilience Job Alliance. To reach our climate goals, the public, private, and institutional sectors must make unprecedented investments that require a large and more diverse workforce. We can't have a climate-ready city without a climate-ready workforce. The Greater Boston Coastal Resilience Job Alliance brings together key stakeholders, including employers, trainers, community engagement partners, climate policy practitioners, adult basic education programs, and wraparound service agencies to develop and implement training pathways aimed at filling 777 committed jobs in coastal and climate resilience occupations over the next 4 years. Workers trained through the grant will be placed in jobs that help advance coastal resiliency strategies, especially the municipal and public sector, including installing green infrastructure and other nature-based solutions, which are essential for flood resilience and for water quality, updating our infrastructure to ensure that our water and wastewater systems are reliable, building critical flood and coastal protections, strengthening the city's emergency preparedness and response capabilities, and climate resilience community education and outreach. The jobs committed are almost all union jobs, with family-sustaining wages and benefits and opportunities to advance and with career development pathways. According to a Boston Planning Department analysis, the 777 jobs are estimated to generate an additional 417 indirect and induced jobs in Boston annually, which will contribute $197 million to Boston's gross city product. The Greater Boston Coastal Resilience Job Alliance is also a key step on the way to creating Boston's first Climate, Business, and Workforce Development Center. By establishing this center, we will have the opportunity to connect workforce training and business development opportunities in the emerging green economy, to launch additional training efforts to meet the entire Green New Deal workforce demand, an analysis of which will be released this fall, and to take an agile and industry-connected approach to as opportunities in climate, business, and workforce evolve over the coming decade, including a range of services in business development training and a revolving loan fund. None of this would have been possible without the investments made by the IRA, and so I'm excited to be here today to celebrate its second anniversary with all of you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Next, we're going to hear from Joe Curtatone, President, Northeast Clean Energy Council. All good news.
Thank you, Senator. Well, good afternoon. It really is an honor here today to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the IRA and to discuss the profound impact the Inflation Reduction Act has had on our community, on our economy, and the environment. I think you'll hear this quite often, and it is true. The IRA is more than just legislation. It's a game changer. It's a game changer for Massachusetts and for the nation. Since its implementation, and as the only organization of our type that represents the climate tech as a nonprofit as well, the climate tech and clean energy industry for trade, I can attest to this. We've seen billions of dollars invested in Massachusetts, certainly, but billions of dollars invested in early stage and emerging climate tech companies that are creating the innovation and technology to lead us to a just, equitable, and rapid transition to a clean energy future. But this groundbreaking law has accelerated our transition to clean energy across many fronts. As you heard the Senator said, it's brought billions of dollars to Massachusetts, including hundreds of millions of dollars to fund projects across the whole Commonwealth, not just a few cities. And these investments, they're not just figures on a balance sheet. They translate into real, tangible benefits for the entire community across our state. The IRA has created thousands of jobs in Massachusetts, fueling demand for skilled workers in well-paying positions, from the electric vehicle battery manufacturing facility in Methuen to the EV Research Center in Marlborough and the electrolyzer plant near Lowell, and as the Senator mentioned, to the offshore wind terminal in Salem. We are literally witnessing a transformative wave of clean energy innovation and job creation. But the impact doesn't stop there. The solar project in Worcester, alongside upcoming solar, wind, and energy storage facilities, underscores something really unique and impactful about the IRA: the dual focus on cutting harmful emissions and bolstering our local economy. These projects are not just about clean energy. They're about empowering workers, revitalizing communities, and ensuring a sustainable future for all. I want to express our deepest gratitude to Senator Ed Markey. Make no mistake, his unwavering leadership and vision were instrumental in getting this bill passed. Senator Markey, I want to say this to you. Your dedication to climate action and worker empowerment is truly inspiring, and Massachusetts and the nation is better off for it. I also would like to acknowledge my fellow speakers. You've heard Kate England, the Director of Green Infrastructure for the City of Boston. I do want to recognize Trin Nagayan, the Chief of Worker Empowerment for the City of Boston. Ryan Murphy, Executive Director of Climate Jobs of Massachusetts, AFL-CIO, and a very satisfied former Somerville resident. And Darvel Jefferson, the Executive Director of Power Corp Boston, and the leaders, the young leaders in Power Corp Boston. Each of you, along with our collective efforts, plays a critical role in ensuring that the benefits of the IRA reach every corner of every community. This is important. We want to lead a clean energy transition. We want to create the jobs and the workforce, but we're creating community wealth. We are unlocking, with Senator Markey's leadership and everyone's collective work, an economy that's in the trillions of dollars. We need to make sure we bring everybody along and don't leave people behind for the jobs, and we don't put the dirtiest components of an industry in their neighborhoods, that we lead with equity and justice. If we do that, we'll be a richer nation. And I'll leave you with this. Once again, the IRA is more than a legislative success. It surely is. It's a beacon of hope and a model of real progress. It demonstrates what we can achieve when we invest in people, place, and planet. Together, we're building a cleaner, more prosperous future for Massachusetts and our country. Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and happy anniversary to the IRA.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. And Joe is so right. This is a bill which has unlocked investments beyond our wildest imagination. Over here is 2 years ago today, I was on the Senate floor and we were having the vote on this bill. And you can see Kamala Harris is up there as the vice president to come to break the tie. It's 50-50. And we needed Kamala Harris to break the tie. And you can see me down here moving towards the well of the House with my hands over my head in celebration, because she's just told the clerk to record her as an aye. And at the time, the bill was $369 billion. That was the best estimate that people had of what the level of enthusiasm would be for this bill. Turns out it's completely wrong. Experts now say it's $1 trillion to $1.2 trillion in tax breaks that will, in fact, be used by Americans. 100,000 just from Massachusetts last year for $243 million. These numbers are staggering, and it's going to unleash, as Joe just said, another $4 or $5 trillion worth of private sector investment. So this is transformational. And to talk about the job aspect of this, the union job, we have Ryan Murphy, Executive Director, Climate Jobs of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the Climate Jobs Massachusetts Coalition and the Massachusetts AFL-CIO. I'm thrilled to be here with Senator Markey and my colleagues here as we celebrate what will prove to be the most consequential federal policy for workers and communities in decades. The Inflation Reduction Act greatly incentivizes family-sustaining union careers in clean energy for workers here in Boston and throughout Massachusetts. Senator Markey knows that the energy transition can only be successful when workers and their families are driving it. Working families built and continue to maintain the infrastructure that we rely on today: our schools, our roads and railroads, our power plants and electric grid. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, we are doing it again. Workers and apprentices in New Bedford and Salem and the surrounding areas already have family-sustaining union careers building and operating the offshore wind turbines that power our grid and that keep the lights on for thousands of homes under a project labor agreement, and thanks to the work of the Massachusetts Building Trades Unions and the Inflation Reduction Act. And while those workers work on those offshore wind farms, they have pensions and good health care through their union. In the next few years, workers and apprentices here in Mattapan and the surrounding neighborhoods will have family-sustaining union careers building and operating thermal energy networks that reduce emissions and make our communities healthier to live in. And while they build those thermal energy networks, they will have pensions and good health care through their union. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the money we spend on these critical, large-scale clean energy projects will go back into our communities and the people who live and work here in Massachusetts. The Climate Jobs National Resource Center just yesterday released a report finding that in Massachusetts there are 120 clean energy projects in development that could be eligible for the tax incentives under the IRA. These projects, as the Senator mentioned, would produce more than 17 gigawatts of clean power. They would invest $54 billion into these projects and create more than 63,000 jobs. These projects are only eligible for the maximum tax credits under the IRA if they pay workers the prevailing wage and utilize apprenticeship programs that train the clean energy workers of the future. That's the beauty of the Inflation Reduction Act. By building clean energy projects with strong labor standards that support family-sustaining union careers, we are reducing emissions and putting money back into our communities at the same time. Thank you.
And thank you, Ryan, so much. And the Vineyard Wind Project, we signed the project labor agreement down on the Cape, New Bedford, for the Salem part of offshore wind. PLA, Project Labor Agreement, unions in the last week. So we can see what's happening. It's transformational, and we wrote it right into the law so that we would ensure that we'd be incentivizing union labor to be building this clean energy future. But that's not all. We have to make sure that we deal with the already existing environmental problems. When I was a boy, when I was at Boston College, I wrote my paper on the Civilian Conservation Corps. And the Civilian Conservation Corps was an idea which President Roosevelt had, which it turned out to be the most favorably viewed program of his entire New Deal, where he put millions of young people out planting trees, engaging in conservation. Now, the problem with that is that there weren't many black faces, there weren't many brown faces, and there weren't any women that were included. So what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I did was in 2021, we introduced the Civilian Climate Corps so that we would put tens of thousands of young people out in our country, but to make sure that at least half of them were women, black and brown. And so that got defeated as part of that bill, but we worked with President Biden, and in April of this year, out at a Civilian Conservation Corps facility in Northern Virginia, which still exists, President Biden, with Alexandria and I standing on either side of him, announced the American Climate Corps, which is going to be 20,000 young people who will be working out in communities all across our country. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the American Climate Corps, the Peace Corps is 8,000 young people a year. The Climate Corps is going to be 2.5 times bigger. And here in Boston, always ahead of the curve, always leading the way, Dave O. Jefferson is the executive director of Power Corps Boston, which is already doing the work of the American Climate Corps. And it's a tribute again to all of the great vision which our Green New Deal mayor, Michelle Wu, has for the future of this great city. So Dave-O, please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave O. Jefferson. I'm the executive director of Power Corps Boston. We are a workforce development training program with a green industry focus. We work with young adults from Boston to help expose, to help educate, get experience, and then get employed in the green space. As Senator Markey alluded to, in his research, there weren't a lot of black and brown faces in the green space. One of Power Corps' charges is to help black and brown that green space. So I'm happy to be in this role to exact that. I want to thank Senator Markey for his leadership in securing funds and resources for the residents of Massachusetts. His record in addressing climate change related issues is stellar, and I look forward to him continuing to be a champion in that space. Also like to thank our Mayor, Michelle Wu, for her fearless leadership and her forward thinking in making Boston a Green New Deal city. Through the efforts and support of both Senator Markey and Mayor Michelle Wu, programs like Power Corps get a chance to exist. This is the neighborhood that I actually live in right now, so I'm really fortunate to be a person that will directly feel the effects of some of the IRA funds. There are projects that are happening in this community, so I'll get a chance to benefit from that firsthand. Also, Power Corps Boston program participants will be working on those projects as well, so they're getting a chance to do some projects in the communities that they live in. They come from environmental justice communities, so it's really important that the people closest to the problem get an opportunity to be a part of the solution, and IRA funds help to make that happen. Again, this is my neighborhood. I grew up in Boston. I currently live about 5 minutes walking. I walk my dog in this park. I jog here. Make sure them coffee cups and stuff get properly disposed before you guys leave. Thank you, Commissioner Woods, for making these parks as beautiful and clean as they are. And again, that the IRA funds are directly affecting communities like this and making them more welcoming. And I really appreciate all of the support from folks like the Senator and our Mayor, Michelle Wu. So thank you guys, and happy Friday. Oh, lastly, sorry, Senator. I want to give a special shout out because I got some of my folks. I got my guy Lou, I got Chris, I got Adrian here, and I got Tariq, and I got Iman somewhere. He's actually a program graduate, and he's actually out here working in this park. I just want to shout out the future leaders that are helping to address some of those climate change issues. So thanks again, sorry, Senator.
Fantastic. No, thank you. Thank you. Because that's what it's all about. This is generational. This is the Green New Deal generation. They're very upset with the legacy that the oil, gas, and coal industry have left them. They're very unhappy about the inaction that has taken place. And what the Climate Corps does, Devo, and all of your great workers here, is begin to transform the vision of what our country can do. And Boston has to be the leader, because we're not just the Bay State, we're the brain state as well. And Boston is the capital of it. And we're only 2% of America, but we're not an ordinary 2%, as Joe Curtatone has already laid out, in terms of new technologies, in terms of jobs that are going to be created. We're going to be creating them at 5 times the rate of the rest of the country. That's because we're the innovation capital. We don't complain. We go out and innovate to solve the problems. And Governor Healy is the greenest governor in the nation. Michelle Wu is the Green New Deal mayor, not just for the United States, but for the whole planet. And her cabinet is here. Trin Nguyen is here, the Director of Workforce Development as well. We thank you, along with all the other great people here from the Wu administration. So we're going to keep working. We're going to keep working for a Green New Deal for healthcare, Green New Deal for schools, Green New Deal all the way up and down the line to get the funding we're going to need in order to make sure that our housing, that our schools, that every part of our society is in fact made climate resilient. So it's a great day. It's a happy birthday for the Green New Deal and for the IRA, which is really just the Green New Deal under a different name, because Joe Manchin did not want it to be called the Green New Deal. So we gave him naming rights, but we got $1 trillion in return for that. A good trade. You can see the results right here today. Thank you all so much for all being here today. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Thank you.